operates. But when you press your clutch down on a manual car, you are disengaging the engine from the gear. So there is no power going to the gearbox to drive that car. You are in a car free, I will so you are disengaging there. When you press your clutch down, press down. When you press down your clutch, you are disengaging the engine from the gear. Unaziwachanisha, sawa? When you lift your clutch, how do we release our clutch? We lift our knee and the heel of the shoe does not touch the floor of the vehicle, isn't it? We learned that in practicals. So meaning, if I want to connect the engine and the gearbox. Now to connect, let's use the word connecting. Do you see those arrows? To connect, to connect. Remember we're talking about a manual car. To connect the engine and the gearbox, you have to lift the clutch. You lift the clutch so that you can connect the engine and the gearbox. Then the clutch, you will feel a biting point. The clutch has a biting point. What we also call a biting point has one. What we call a biting point. A biting point. Also, it's also called a loading point. A loading point. Of which these two, the biting point, the loading point, also the clutch controlling point. There are so many terms are used there when controlling point. Because your connecting point, also connecting point. Do you see? All these are the same thing. Connecting point. Remember. Your biting point of the clutch, your loading point of the clutch, your controlling point of the clutch, your connecting point of the clutch is the one that helps you park a vehicle, reverse a vehicle, a manual car, slowly. It's also your controlling point. Remember, after biting point, loading point, or controlling point, or connecting the clutch, there is a point just above it, 0.1 centimeter, isn't it? Just above it, slightly above it, that controls the vehicle. So anytime you have a manual car, you want to connect the clutch. Once you have loaded the clutch or you have connected the clutch, lift it slightly. Allow it to move for a few seconds before you drive off. Because immediately you release the clutch in one smooth and broken movement, the vehicle starts moving more faster. So the clutch, these are the controlling points of the clutch. The people use different terms. You can use the biting point. Some people use loading point. Can you load your clutch? Some people use controlling point. Some people also use connecting point. But it means the same thing. As long as you know the biting point or the connecting point is the point at which the engine and the gear is connected. You have connected it, but the drive has not started. So above connecting point, the vehicle starts moving. So 0.1 above connecting point, the vehicle now starts moving slow. If you release the clutch completely, the vehicle now moves with that gear you have engaged. And when we start with number one. So when you press your clutch down of a manual car, you are disengaging. It's also called coasting. 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 So I've used another term, coasting. So also coasting. Coasting is when the clutch is down. Coasting is when the clutch is down. You cannot avoid coasting when you are shifting to another gear. The clutch has to go down, isn't it? You shift gears, So, and then you release the clutch, then you proceed, So there's those few seconds you are using, you are posting the car, when you are changing gears, you can't help it, because it's a manual car, But when you press the clutch down for a longer period than necessary, the vehicle becomes free, isn't it? Like a hand cut, you are pushing down the engine. Even if it's in a gear, it will be free because when you press the clutch down, you are disengaging the engine from the gears, isn't it? So the vehicle becomes free. When you lift your clutch, you are connecting again to move with that gear, as such. So there are only two special gears whereby you can load and control the vehicle, number one and three, especially when you are doing a 3-point turn. Okay. So there is coasting. There's also another term I want also to talk about before we go back to this. There's also riding the clutch. This is penalizing during an exam. Riding the clutch. Riding the clutch. Are we together? Riding the clutch is you have released